Have you ever stopped to think about what an ad is really trying to do? I mean, we're surrounded by them all day, every day. But what if I told you their actual job is probably completely different from what you assume? All right, let's dive in and really unpack the science of how modern advertising actually works. So, the common wisdom, right? It's that advertising is all about strong arm persuasion. The idea is that some super clever ad is supposed to grab you, convince you, and make you want to run out and buy something that very second. It's basically seen as this powerful, manipulative force. But is that really what's going on? For a long, long time, the textbook answer was a big yes. Marketing students were taught this thing called the AIDA model. It said that for an ad to work, it had to grab your attention, hold your interest, create desire, and then finally prompt action. It's a really neat, simple story. The only problem is, decades of actual evidence shows that's just not how our brains or our shopping habits really work. Okay, so let's just toss that old rule book out the window. If advertising isn't about twisting your arm, then what is its real job? What does all the data actually tell us? This right here, this is the fundamental shift in thinking. On the one hand, you've got that old view, advertising as this immediate, forceful persuasion. But the modern, evidence-based views sees its primary job as something totally different, building and refreshing memory. It's way less about convincing you and much, much more about making a brand basically impossible to forget. And this leads us to a pretty wild idea. Advertising is actually a weak force. Now, that doesn't mean it's useless or ineffective, not at all. It just means its power doesn't come from some aggressive, manipulative push. Instead, it works through these subtle, gentle nudges over a really long time, mostly just trying to keep the brand top of mind for people who might one day buy it. So the key to this whole thing is a concept called memory structures. The real goal of advertising today is to build this big, rich, stable spiderweb of associations around a brand in your head. We're talking colors, jingles, logos, feelings, situations, all of it connected to that one brand name. The stronger that web is, the more likely you are to just think of that brand when you're finally ready to buy something.
So this breaks down the real job description for an ad today. First, it's there to build and refresh those memory structures we just talked about. This creates what marketers call mental availability, which is just a fancy way of saying the brand is easy to think of. From there, it gently nudges people who already buy it, reinforcing their choice and stopping them from switching to a competitor. It's way more about playing defense than offense.
All right, that's the theory. But let's make this really concrete with an absolutely brilliant real-world example. We're going to look at one of the most famous advertising turnarounds of all time. Let's talk about Old Spice. Before that famous campaign, Old Spice had a huge problem. The brand was just collecting dust. It was seen as your grandfather's aftershave, and that's not a good thing. The memory structures linked to it were old, tired, and frankly, completely irrelevant to a whole new generation of customers who were all buying brands like Axe instead. So their solution was just a masterclass in building new, fresh memory structures. They introduced this set of powerful, unforgettable, and super distinctive assets. You had the ridiculously charismatic man on a horse, you had that iconic whistle at the end, and of course, the hilarious tagline, "Smell like a man, man." These weren't just random jokes, they were strategic tools designed to completely rewire how people thought and felt about Old Spice. And this is the absolute key takeaway. The wild creativity of those ads wasn't just for a cheap laugh. Every single element, no matter how absurd it seemed, was strategically designed to be memorable and, crucially, linked back to the brand. The creativity was there to serve the brand. It wasn't just showing off for the sake of it. So this whole memory-based view of advertising, it has massive implications for who you should even be talking to. I mean, if your goal is to build these broad memory structures in as many minds as possible, does it really make sense to only target a tiny little niche of people? Okay, take a look at this chart. It tells a really surprising story. For almost any brand you can think of, the diehard fans, the heavy buyers, are actually a tiny sliver of the pie. The vast majority of a brand's sales comes from light buyers, people who only buy it once in a while. And the biggest opportunity for growth, it's that massive pool of light and even non-buyers. If you only focus on your existing loyal fans, you're just setting yourself up for stagnation. So the conclusion from all the evidence is crystal clear. To maintain your brand, and especially to grow it, your advertising has to reach everyone who could possibly buy from your category. Why? Because you just can't predict who's going to be walking down that supermarket aisle next week. Your job is to build that mental availability among all of them, so your brand pops into their head when the time is right. So naturally, if the whole job of advertising is changed, the way we measure whether it's working or not has to change too. If it's not about immediate persuasion, then obsessing over short-term stuff like clicks and shares might be missing the entire point.
So what's the best way to know if an ad campaign truly worked? Well, it turns out there is a gold standard for measurement that cuts right through all the noise and the guesswork. It's called single source data. It's a really powerful method that connects the only two dots that matter: what ads a specific family saw and what that exact same family actually bought at the store. There's no guessing. It directly measures if seeing an ad actually led to a sale. This lets you track the real cumulative impact of all those gentle nudges over time. It's how you truly measure advertising's weak force in action.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. The very next time you see an ad, on TV, online, wherever, just ask yourself this: is this ad really trying to aggressively persuade me to buy something right now? Or is it just trying to plant a small, distinctive, and memorable seed in my brain, patiently waiting for some moment in the future? Chances are, it's the latter.